Hello and welcome to ManchTalk. I'm Tammy Simmons. I'm your host and I'm glad you're joining me. I hope you all had a great Memorial Day weekend. Despite the rain, it was, still nice to have decent weather, not too hot, not too cold. A lot of great outdoor activities, parades for those fallen veterans, etc. I hope you all had a safe and wonderful weekend. Dan and I stopped into the new Chunky's down in, I guess that's Highland. I'm not even sure what that road is. Down at the old Lowe's location south of the mall. We stopped in on Monday, and we didn't watch a movie. We just stopped to have something to eat because they have an actual bar area where you can, without even going to see a movie, you can have an iced tea or a beer, and you can order food and eat right there. We both had burgers. It was great. Matinees are like $6.49, and I think regular movie price there is $8.99, and they have probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 different showings going on throughout the day. Very excited that Manchester finally has a movie theater again after many, many years of going without one. So anyways, if you have a chance and you enjoy going to the movies, check out Chunky's. They're down when you go down South Willow Street, just below the mall. You can't miss it. It's on the left-hand side on Hughes Road. Check them out. I want to just, before I start talking about anything more substantial, I wanted to talk about last week's special election for state representative for Hillsborough 44. Congratulations goes to former representative and now representative-elect Mark McLean. He will be returning to Concord to represent wards 8, 9 in the town of Litchfield. I want to thank everybody who came out and voted in the special election. Mark won not only the race overall, but he carried Manchester and Litchfield, which was nice to see. So again, congratulations to Rep-elect Mark McLean for his victory in last week's special election. There's a couple other elections coming up. There's one for the state Senate seat. They have a Democratic primary, I believe, next weekend, and then the general elections in July. I'll talk about that more. And then eventually we'll have a special election for the seat vacated by Steve Valancourt when he passed away. So I'll keep you informed as those dates get closer and they're more timely. So you might wonder, or at least I always wonder, when it gets to be the weekend, I wonder, geez, what am I going to talk about on my show on Tuesday? And usually there's something in the newspaper that, gives me something to talk about or at least triggers something. And sometimes I have to do a little more digging than, I had hoped. And then there's some weeks that I swear stuff just drops in my lap and I think, really? Is it this easy? And this is one of those weeks. So I want to run a little video for you. And then afterwards I'll talk to you a little bit more about it.
I've got an 85-year-old woman that lives across the street, and she won't give up her house. She's sitting on $350,000. And she can't afford it anymore. And you say, give her a tax credit. No, we should have a program that gets her out of the house. I mean, we need to get new people to come in and occupy those houses. We can't be run by the elderly in a city. That's foolishness. I mean, if you want to go do that, you can go down to the communities outside of Orlando, and they have a lot of money.
Well, I'm 75 years old, and I consider myself basically elderly, but I want to keep my house, and I'm on a pension, so a teaching pension.
I've got
Yep, that's Alderman Chris Herbert from Ward 4. I was amazed. Like, do people actually say these things? So apparently Alderman Herbert, who also not only is alderman for Ward 4, he is an elected state representative for Wards 4, 5, 6, and 7. So he's not only nuts at the city level, he's doing the same thing up in Concord. But, so let me get this right. Somewhere on Alderman Herbert's street, supposedly is an 85-year-old woman who's sitting on a $350,000 home that she won't give up. Just so you know, I went and looked up all the tax bills and the assessment values for all the houses on his street. He lives at 85 Watt Street over there in Ward 4 near Stevens Park. there isn't a house on his street that's assessed at $350,000. I went through and looked, and the highest value was probably about 251, and it definitely wasn't owned by an 85-year-old woman. So not off the right out of the bat, he's exaggerating. There isn't a house on his street that's worth $350,000 to start. But even if there was, and even if that $350,000 house was owned by an 85-year-old woman, who thinks that the government should be able to decide when somebody should give up their house? According to the video, Chris Herbert thinks that there should be a program so that we can get all the older people out of their houses so that we won't give them any tax credits and let younger people occupy those properties. So, what? That just sounds little socialistic, doesn't it? So, I went and did some research. I looked up on the city website. You can find this all on manchesternh.gov, by the way. You can look up property tax values. You can look up people's real estate bills. You can look up information on the elderly tax credits or any other tax credits. It's all right there on manchesternh.gov. So in Manchester, we offer a handful of tax exemptions. We offer a $400 veterans tax credit. So if you're a veteran, you get $400 off your tax bill, regardless of whether your tax bill is $3,000 or $6,000. You get $400. If you're a disabled veteran, you get $1,600. If you are blind, we will take $109,500, assuming you qualify, off of your assessed value of your home. And then there's the elderly exemption. Now, there's some criteria first. I want to lay out the criteria. You have to have lived in your house for 3 or more years. If you are married and your spouse owns the house, you have to have been married for 5 years. If you are single, if you're just a single person living in your house, you can't earn more than $37,000 a year. If you're married, you can't jointly earn more than $50,000 a year. You can't have assets if you're single valued more than $90,000, and if you're married, more than $115,000. Now, those assets don't include your home, but they include everything else. Your car, any retirement fund, any jewelry, anything you own can't exceed the value of $90,000 for a single person here in Manchester. Now, if you meet all these criteria, and you have all the documentation to back it up, we have exemptions based on your age. If you're between the age of 65 and 74, we will allow you to deduct $109,500 from your assessed value. So if your house is valued at, $200,000, they're going to take $200,000 minus the $109,500 and then tax you on the difference. If once you turn 75 to 79, we allow you to deduct $148,500, and 80 plus you're allowed to deduct $195,500. So what that does is, the older you get, because we're presuming that many of these people have lived in in our community and have been paying taxes for years and years and years. And while we know that the elderly generally are living on fixed incomes, and they're, most of them are not very wealthy, and even if they are, they wouldn't qualify for this exemption anyways. I mean, making $37,000 a year is only like just over $3,000 a month. That's hardly wealthy. And there's nothing wrong with helping the elderly in our community. So Alderman Herbert seems to think that this is a problem, because apparently if we give these exemptions to these elderly people, we're not able to generate enough revenue, which means Alderman Herbert can't spend that money in addition to all the other money he spends on your behalf. Because I don't think there's an expense that Alderman Herbert doesn't like. He would just as soon spend all of your money for you if he could. I went and looked at the houses on Watt Street because I was kind of curious, and I narrowed it down to, there's a whole bunch of houses. There were probably 20, 30 houses on Watt Street, and I looked, and there's probably 3 houses that could be somebody who's 85 years old, because I'm guessing the 85-year-old person didn't buy their house in the last few years. So I narrowed it down to 3, one of which is on the same side of the street as Alderman Herbert, so I doubt that's it. And there were 2 on the other side of the street. One of them was purchased in 1986 and was valued at $236,300. And there was another one that was purchased in 1995, but it was purchased from another family member that was purchased in 1983, and that house was only valued at $158,500. So the two houses that seem like they might be owned by an 85-year-old woman, neither of them are anywhere close to $350,000 in value, and even if they were, God forbid we don't let the 85-year-old woman off the hook for having to pay the crazy amount of taxes that we expect them to pay. These houses are purchased and paid for by these people. These are not the property of the government. These are the property of those people. Why not, instead of worrying about how we're going to tax people to death, we start looking a little bit more about why it is that our taxes are so high that we have to offer exemptions to the elderly. Maybe if our taxes weren't so ridiculously high, we wouldn't have to offer so many exemptions. So that makes me wonder, so who does Alderman Herbert think should decide who can stay in their house and who can't stay in their house? Are we going to have some special government committee that's going to decide that you're still okay, you're still giving us enough of your money that we're going to let you stay in your own property? This is absolute socialism and nothing more. I mean, Chris Herbert, sorry, you're a socialist. This is a perfect example of socialism. For those of you who don't know, Chris Herbert's also the one who thinks that we should have a public bank. This is one of his pet projects. We should have a public bank which is controlled and funded by the government rather than by private investors. So this way, the government could take your tax dollars that they take from you by force, and they could put it into their own bank and then borrow against it because they'd approve their own loans, so that we can spend even more money faster than we do now when we have to go out and get bonded through a non-public bank. Yeah, this guy's just absolutely crazy. So, maybe we do need a program, but I don't think it's a program on figuring out how to get the elderly out of the houses that they bought and paid for. I think maybe we need a program to get I never met a spending plan or a union contract that I don't approve of, aldermen out of office. Maybe the program should be to remove them. And for those of you who aren't catching on, that's called Election Day, which just happens to be this year for city elections. The people in Ward 4 deserve better than Chris Herbert. They deserve someone who respects the people who live in the ward, and that includes respect for the elderly residents there as well. There are so many people who have lived in this community, paid their fair share of taxes over the years. For Alderman Herbert to think that they should just somehow be pushed out and put into some program, and I don't know where he thinks they're going to go. Are we going to build barracks for them? Are we going to have camps for them and just put them in there? None of this sounds like a really good plan at all. The people of Ward 4 deserve a better alderman who actually is more in line with their thinking, and we definitely deserve better representation for Wards 4, 5, 6, and 7 up at the State House. So by any means, if you know anybody who lives in Ward 4, or if you live in Ward 4 yourself, email me, ManchTalk@gmail.com, and I will hook you up with somebody that's either running for office, or you can help me find somebody to run to get rid of Chris Herbert at City Hall. It's a shame that we used to have Jim Roy as an alderman, and now we have Chris Herbert. This is like night and day. Jim Roy was a great alderman. Chris Herbert's just a kook. We don't need more cradle-to-grave government control of your lives. We need less government, smaller government, more restrained spending. It's really, really time for Chris Herbert to go, not the elderly. And if you want, you know what? You could call Chris Herbert yourself. His phone number is 669-2838. Call him and tell him that you don't think it's okay to push the elderly out of their homes. So, now that I've got that out of my way and got myself all worked up over that, I thought I'd talk about some more enjoyable things, some great things to do right here in Manchester in the next week or so. First off, I wanted to remind people that this weekend, June 2nd through 4th, so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have the Food Trucks for Casa event at McIntyre Ski Area. They're located at 50 Chalet Court. They're over in Ward 2 over there, over near, well, you can't miss it. It's a ski place. Their hours of operation are going to be Friday 4 to 8, Saturday 11 to 8, and Sunday 11 to 6. Admission is just $5, and that there'll be food trucks set up, and you can purchase whatever you want. There'll be snacks and entrees and desserts and local brews from local breweries. All the proceeds from that $5 admission go to CASA, and you can get more information on that event at foodtrucksforcasa.com. Next, I wanted to talk about this coming Saturday. The Friends of the Manchester Animal Shelter will have their annual plant sale. That is located at the animal shelter. You can Google it and find out more information. That's Saturday, June 3rd. Next, I would like to tell you about, I never heard of this one before, this is a new one, the 13th Annual Kitchen Tour on Sunday, June 4th from 10 to 4. This is organized by the Palace Theater. You can register and pick up a map at 9:45 in the morning at the Granite State Cabinetry location. It is $50 a person. Lunch is provided at Barron's Major Brands. It's catered, and then there's an after party at La Belle Winery, and there's a tour of all sorts of kitchens in Bedford and Manchester. It's kind of an interesting thing. You can get more information on that at palacetheater.org. In the next coming weeks, not this week, but next week and going forward, Amskeg Fishways is hosting some guided walking tours in Manchester. The first one is on Friday, June 16th at Livingston Park. Then there's one on Friday, June 23rd at the Piscataquag River Park. And then the third one is Friday, June 30th at Stark Park. You'll search for urban wildlife and learn how to identify local plants and trees. You'll meet at the Fishways, which is right there just outside, just on the Amoskeag Circle at 4 Fletcher Street. You meet there at 10 a.m., and then they'll go off to the park and they'll do the tour and everything. You can get more information about that at amoskeagfishways.org. That's AMOSKEAG fishways.org. And lastly, as you may know, I am an avid kayaker, or at least I guess I'm not avid. I'm just a kayaker. I'm just a person with a kayak. Dan and I love to go out and kayak in Manchester and around the state. And I found this, and this is coming up. This is a few weeks away, but I figured people might want to mark it on their calendar. The Sohegan Watershed. This is a mouthful. Sohegan Watershed Association is hosting free guided kayaking trips. Can't beat that. And there's going to be one on the Merrimack River in Manchester on Sunday, July 2nd. I don't really know much more about it. I will try to talk about it in the next coming weeks. But you can get more information about this guided kayaking trip and other guided kayaking trips around the state at soheganriver.org. That's SOUHEGAN river.org. I know I'm going to try to make that one. It's 4th of July weekend. It's going to be a lot, there's a lot going on, but anytime I can get a free guided tour, I take advantage of it. And I will tell you that kayaking on the Merrimack is tons of fun. I'm very curious to see which section in Manchester they're going to do. So that's all I got for upcoming events. As always, you can check out Cooptopia.com and Groupon.com and find great deals in Manchester at some local eateries. There's great things. There's usually a coupon for Piccolo Italia and Pint Public House and all sorts of places. It's a great way to get out and try local restaurants without having to spend a lot of money. Lastly, I wanted to remind people that the Manchester Republican Committee holds its monthly meeting on the first Monday of the month, and coming up in June, that'll be on June 5th, Monday, June 5th, at Murphy's Tap Room at 6 p.m. That's the Manchester Republican Committee. We encourage all Republicans and like-minded independents to join us and see what they can learn to do in election year. This year we have city elections, so we're always looking for people to run for office there, and then next year with the state elections, and we love to have more people involved. And it's just a great time to get together and talk with people that are like-minded. Again, that's Monday, June 5th, 6 p.m. at Murphy's Tap Room. That's all I really have for this week. I'm looking forward to the rain going away, and I think by Thursday we should be back in the sunshine. If you have any ideas for shows, if you have any comments, if you want more information about Alderman Herbert, if you would like to more information about anything that I talk about, or if you have suggestions, by all means, email me. My email is manchtalk@gmail.com. I think it's right there on the screen. You can also follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at ManchTalk. I'd love to hear from more people. I'd love to get feedback on the show. That's why I would do the show, so that I can bring you information. And if there's something that you'd like to hear more about, or a guest that you'd like me to have on, by all means, send me an email, and I will do my best to meet your needs. That's all I have. I hope you have a great week. That's it. Bye.